Alrighty, let's react to some Tesla videos here.
Asset management. Gene, great to have you with us.
Hi.
Let's start off at Tesla, because that's sort of where we left off before with the traders here on the desk. What do you make of this quarter? It's a little head scratching in terms of the reaction in the after hours, given the quality of the print.
Yeah, this was, Melissa. I was shocked to see the stock up. I mean, this was messy. I think, Guy, what did you say? This is a cult stock? Ultimately, I think that the numbers were pretty...
Listen, not surprising at all to me. What type of market are we in? We've been in a risk-on market for over 2 years now, right? There's so much optimism in the market. Look at what Bitcoin's done. Bitcoin went from, 2 years ago, it was 15, 20,000. We're at 100,000 plus on Bitcoin. We're in a major risk-on market right now. There's a Trump optimism. There's all that going on. I don't know how much longer this lasts. Maybe it lasts another 6 months, 12 months, 3 months. I don't know. But it's not going to last forever, I can tell you that much. But right now, it's kind of more of a story market. It's like long term, this thing's going to be that thing, right? Everybody's got their prediction for Bitcoin. Bitcoin's going to be 500,000. It's going to be $1 million. It's going to be 10 million, 20 million, 50 million, 100 million. We're just throwing things out. That's the market we're in right now, right? And that will last until it doesn't. And then when it breaks, it's going to break hard. And it's going to be very painful, as it was in 2022, right? Tesla stock fell peak to trough in that crash 70%, as did Bitcoin and many other assets. So we will go through that pain again, but the pain's not right now. We're still in this kind of euphoria mode for the market in the short term.
And it's just hard to see why it's up right now. I think it's basically confirmation that people think that this is more to go.
What do you want to hear from Microsoft?
It's all about capex, and Zuckerberg said it related to Microsoft. It's all about capex. But I want to highlight probably the most important point from these earnings calls so far. Zuckerberg's comments that they're going to spend hundreds of billions on capex. I mean, that's really reassuring. That's what we're looking to hear from Microsoft, how much they're spending on capex.
By the way, Microsoft numbers were really good. I know I didn't comment on those on the main channel video today, but Microsoft numbers are very, very solid, as you should expect. Like, Microsoft's just a beast. They just put up their great numbers quarter in, quarter out.
Do you think that we will hear guidance on capex for 2026? And I know that is a mile away, but a lot of investors want to hear that Microsoft, this year's $80 billion is going to be the peak.
I think this, coming into this earnings, just taking a step back, Melissa, this is all about what's going to happen with capex. And as I mentioned, Zuckerberg's comments about the hundreds of billions, to put that into perspective, this plays into what's going to happen in 2026. His comment about hundreds of billions. So far, Meta's invested probably $50 billion in capex. So just to put some context about how far along the road we are. And I think that as we kind of play that forward to 2026, if he's saying hundreds of billions of dollars, and you have to kind of, given the competitive nature of how these companies are building the AI infrastructure, the comments that Zuckerberg's making is probably going to be similar to some of the comments that we're going to hear from Microsoft. And to get to that hundreds of billions probably means that this AI infrastructure build continues into 2026. And so I think that this is really positive.
I don't know. Some of these Wall Streeters, I don't know where where their mind is. Like, some of them have this belief that, like, Microsoft, Meta, these companies are just spending this year and, like, that's going to be it, right? And there's, like, this peak spend or something. Like, no. They're going to spend a ton in 2026 and a ton in 2027 and a ton in 2028 and 2029. Like, it's not like these companies just are spending right now and it's like, oh, we're done. Let's just do share buybacks from now on. We don't need to spend. Like, no, that's not how this works. You can look at all these companies' trajectory of their capex over the last 10, 20 years. And what's the clear, overwhelming trend? Up, 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 up.
This is everything that we've heard so far and seen everything at Tesla, Meta, and Microsoft. The biggest takeaway so far is this is really positive for NVIDIA, even despite what's happened with kind of the China piece, because, as you said, Melissa, that outlook for 2026 on the capex is just really, I think it's upbeat. And keep in mind, Zuckerberg didn't have to reiterate this. He didn't have to double down on what he had said last week. And given what's happened earlier in this week, I think it's really encouraging regarding just the broader AI trade from the very early part of what we've heard from these companies so far.
And Gene, you just mentioned, it's NVIDIA being a beneficiary of all this. We know that, right? So a couple weeks ago, Microsoft, Meta, they gave their capex guidance for the year. So here we are, they're reiterating it. And, let's see how this stock, how far it could run a little bit if it could fill in that gap from Monday. But, going back and looking at that chart over the last 3 years since it really took off, there's not a single gap to the downside. There's plenty to the upside. So I guess the question here is that, is it going to be enough as far as this guidance is concerned, given the headwinds that we might be seeing around the globe with some of these open source models out of China? Like, is there a chance that the trade is just done for a bit?
So this is specific to NVIDIA, or the NVIDIA, maybe the broader AI trade. I think, again, we're piecing together data points real time. That's what happened with DeepSeek, is it was one data point and the market had to extrapolate it I think, out to several years. Now, since then, we've had some more data points. And like you said, with NVIDIA and their business, and I think the bottom line is this, is that if capex infrastructure continues to remain strong, we're going to see models, even if they're novel models like we saw from DeepSeek that can be produced at lower prices, they're still going to want to build the infrastructure to get those models out faster. So if we continue to see that, I think that this is that build out, which is what we're hearing tonight from Zuckerberg. If we continue to see that, I think that not only will the hardware spend more broadly continue, but I think that the software piece is going to start to play out. And so I think that this broader AI trade is still very intact.
3 letters. AMD.
Still waiting for Meta's results. Meta's late. But Dan Ives, Tesla is here, and it's way off the lows here, now down just 2% after missing on the top and bottom. Is it about these cheaper vehicles?
Yeah, I think there's 2 key things here. One, committing first half of the year that they're going to produce those. I think there was a lot of concern that they weren't. This potential could push out in 2026. They doubled down there. And then the other thing that's important in terms of cybercab and autonomous, basically saying robotaxi, you'll start to get parts later this year, full volume production 2026. That, look, 90% of the story right now, it's about AI, autonomous, cybercab, what I believe is at next level. Obviously, numbers itself a little sort of soft, but that's the key. I think there's probably a stock that's going to be up tomorrow.
Microsoft's also off the lows. What matters here, particularly in the commentary, this is a earnings call where we get a lot more on guidance.
Yeah, of course. And this is one you always really have to wait till guidance, but $13 billion. In terms of that AI trajectory, I mean, that's really what the street's focused on, because this is something that's ultimately going to be 20, 25, ultimately 30 billion. That's what's driving this Nadella and Microsoft story. And even
some of the real bright spots for Tesla in the earnings was a balance sheet, cash and cash equivalents and investments looking stronger than ever. Another thing that looked really good was the energy side of the business, phenomenal growth. We're talking triple digits. Services side of the business looks phenomenal as well. So, obviously the automotive business is in a bad spot right now. But, you can make an argument that basically everything outside of the automotive business is extremely strong for Tesla.
Look at it, you talk about currency, that could be a bit of a headwind. I think this is one app.
But do keep in mind, and this is kind of a warning in regards to Tesla, the energy business could slow down quite substantially under the Trump administration, right? All the numbers we've seen from that energy business over the past few years have been under, obviously, the Biden administration that obviously is so pro, the sorts of products obviously Tesla sells. And now that Trump's obviously taken office, I think there is a serious risk that the energy business could slow down substantially over the next several years. So just something to keep in mind there.
Growth actually accelerates. I think the conference call is going to be bullish. They doubled down on the 80 billion in terms of capex, especially this week, here with DeepSeek and everything else. I think this is another one. I look at this numbers. I feel more bullish because that ultimate AI number. I mean, that's really the lotto ticket right now if you own Microsoft.
I want to go back to Tesla for a second. How important is it, given everything that he is focused on right now, including in Washington, for Musk to be on the call? And when you do think about something like robotaxi and autonomous driving, especially on a day where Waymo is announcing that it's going to expand its own taxis to 10 new cities, how much now hinges on that policy green light happening with this administration.
Yeah, I mean, look, it comes down to the deregulatory environment, the Musk bet on Trump, in terms of the bet for the ages. Now you need to see it in terms of the autonomous roadmap from a federal perspective. It is important. Obviously, Musk is on the call, talks about robo-taxi, talks about ultimately the timeline there, the view of autonomous, unsupervised FSD. Look, Morgan, these are really the things that are going to drive the stock. I mean, look, earnings itself are important in the next quarter or two, but I believe when you look out, I believe the AI autonomous story, that's worth $1 trillion alone. That's really going to be front and center on this call, along with what John asked about first half of the year, making sure doubling down these lower cost vehicles are out there. That's how you get to 20-30% type of volume growth in 2025.
Given the fact that we had this DeepSeek shakeout in the market to start the week, we just got some comments from some of the CEOs, tech CEOs that John just spoke to with earnings. We're still waiting on Meta. Zuckerberg just earlier this month actually had some interesting commentary on the Joe Rogan podcast about DeepSeek. How to think about what this does to drive down cost and who the beneficiaries are going to be, because there are going to be beneficiaries. Just thinking about some of the comments from ServiceNow, for example.
Yeah, and look, I mean, it comes down to that 65 billion. They're going to reiterate that probably 3 times in terms of capex for Meta and Zuck, 80 billion from Microsoft. Look, DeepSeek, it was a scare. And I continue to view it, it's bullish for the overall AI revolution, because going back to ServiceNow, Palantir, Salesforce.com, it's the use cases, it's software. That's not slowing it down in terms of what we saw in DeepSeek. And I think if you look at that, it was a shot across the bow. But ultimately, we're going to look out in the next week or two in terms of earnings. The AI revolution.
I think ServiceNow's a really good kind of warning for Palantir stock. You know, if Palantir doesn't come in with a banger revenue number and a banger revenue guide, that stock's going to get hit heavily. If ServiceNow got hit 11%, if Palantir came in with a weak revenue or a weak guide, don't be surprised to see a 15 to 20% sell-off if that was to happen, right?
Rating, and I think that is really going to be sort of a narrative that we hear even tonight.
Look at Big Blue.
Meta's teasing us.
Big Blue.
Wait. What do you want to hear from them? Maybe even when it comes to Llama and its DeepSeek commentary.
Yeah, I think 3 things you want to hear. 1, 60 to 65 billion. Just that reiteration, just showing the confidence from Zuckerberg and Meta from a capex perspective. 2, talking about all 3 billion plus, DAUs, like how are you going to monetize that, showing the strategy from an AI perspective. And then, of course, advertising. Is it high teen growth? Our checks here at Web continue to be much more bullish when it comes to what we're seeing on the advertising side.
Meta's numbers were banger. I mean, if you want in-depth thoughts around that and me to show you all the numbers and everything like that, watch that main channel video. It was a banger.
Hey, it's Jeremy. I hope you really enjoyed that clip here today. Would you like the ability to understand how to do your own research and not just rely on others to tell you which stock to buy? Would you like to have confidence in yourself when it comes to making your own investment decisions out there? If you're going to be able to do that, you got to have full understanding of everything you need to look for in stocks, how you can decipher whether a stock is a buy, not a buy, all those sorts of things. That's where my private group comes in to help. The description area down there will have a link to apply to join my private group. We've taken over 1,000 people over time and been able to teach those folks exactly what to look for in companies, how to research companies, how to understand financial statements, understand all the different metrics so you can make judgments on companies. And we've been able to have so many people, an incredible amount of people, hit 6 figures plus in their portfolios, 7 figures plus, even some hitting 8 figures plus in their portfolios over time. So if you're looking to take your game up to the next level and play this on a much higher level, apply for my private group. Once again, the link is in the description area.
So let's go ahead and talk about Meta and Tesla here, right? So Meta, Tesla, major positions for me. Why don't I care? Let's say these stocks go down 20% on earnings, which might not happen, but let's just say hypothetically that happens. Why don't I care, right? Here's the deal. Tesla is a super volatile stock. Like I just showed you here over the past 5 years, these were all insane volatile moves. It's not like these were small moves. These were all monumental moves for Tesla just in the past 5 years. Tesla's just a volatile stock. So if Tesla's up 20% tomorrow, down 20%, up 5%, down 5%, it really doesn't matter. at all to me. Like, that's just what I come to expect being a Tesla shareholder, right? Tesla stock could have a drawdown all the way to here, and I wouldn't be surprised. It could skyrocket higher. I wouldn't be surprised. Like, nothing surprised me with Tesla stock. Once you've been an investor in that company year after year for many years, you come to just expect wildness from that stock. That's just what it is, right? Meta, massive position for me. Why am I not even scared? I have 0% anxiety or fear about, what's going to happen with Meta earnings here? What's the stock price going to do? And here's why. The reason being is this stock is on its way to $1,000 in the next 24 months, regardless of whatever happens tomorrow. And the reason being, I love to run projections on my companies, right? This is a realistic projection I have for Meta stock over the next number of years. I have them averaging 17% revenue growth from 2025 to 2028. That's a pretty realistic assumption in my personal opinion. Obviously, the company's been growing 20% plus. I think their growth rate will go down a little bit, but not that substantially because the business model is so stable. So 17% revenue growth on average per year, right? Net income growth of 20%. I believe they are going to keep costs down immensely over the coming years. So then do net income growth of about 20% per year on average from 2025 to 2028. You could say 28 to a 35 PE would be very fair for Meta, given those sorts of growth rates. So that puts the stock in 2026 somewhere between about $919 and about $1,149. So the moral of the story is in 2026, Meta will likely be $1,000 plus per share. I'd say a pretty high probability of that. Then we can say 2028, the stock's somewhere between $1,300 and $1,600, and that puts Meta on a path to be $2,000 or more by 2030 or before. So I am of the understanding that Meta stock is likely going to be $2,000 plus in the next, we can call it 4 to 5 years. So if Meta goes down to 500 tomorrow, I don't care because it's on its way to 2,000. If Meta goes up to 700 tomorrow, I don't care because it's on its way to 2,000. So it's all irrelevant to me, right? And we could say this stock's likely on its way to $1,000 in the next 24 months. So once again, if Meta goes down to 500 or goes up to 700 tomorrow, it doesn't matter. It's on its way to 1,000 plus over the next 24 months, right? We can say even if we take a much more conservative approach, which I would call this a little more, on the bearish side than kind of what I'm expecting, 14% revenue growth on average for the next number of years, 17% net income growth, you could say the stock's still going to be probably around $1,000 in 2026, right? And it still would be on the path to $2,000 probably in 2030, right? And then we could say we could take a pretty bearish stance here. 11% revenue growth would be bad for Meta over the next number of years. I mean, really bad. So if we did the company at 11% revenue growth and 14% net income growth, guess what? The stock would still approach $1,000 a share in 2026. I don't know if it would get there, but it would approach that level. And that's in a bearish scenario. So this is why I have 0% anxiety, worry, stress about what's going to happen tomorrow with Tesla, what's going to happen with Meta. It's irrelevant, man. It's completely irrelevant. Like, it's just going to be fun and entertaining to see it and go over the numbers, and I'll do that for you guys on the main channel tomorrow night, right? We're going to have a whole party and a whole great video on the main channel tomorrow night. We'll go in depth on the Meta numbers and the Tesla numbers, and we're going to look at everything. We're going to talk about it all, right? It's going to be a lot of fun. But in terms of am I nervous? Am I worried? It's irrelevant, man. Because I am understanding of both those situations. Tesla's, just up and down. It's just what it is, right? And there's a whole lot more ups and downs when you're a Tesla shareholder. And then Meta's it's on its way to 1,000 and then 2,000 anyway. So it's whatever. They want to send it down tomorrow, send it down. They want to buy it up, buy it up. Like, it doesn't matter. Whatever happens there because of their numbers, the way their numbers are trending, like $1,000 to $2,000 a share is coming out here very, very soon in regards to that one, right?
Hey, it's Jeremy. I hope you really enjoyed that clip here today. Would you like the ability to understand how to do your own research and not just rely on others to tell you which stock to buy? Would you like to have confidence in yourself when it comes to making your own investment decisions out there? If you're going to be able to do that, you got to have full understanding of everything you need to look for in stocks, how you can decipher whether a stock is a buy, not a buy, all those sorts of things. That's where my private group comes in to help. The description area down there will have a link to apply to join my private group. We've taken over 1,000 people over time and been able to teach those folks exactly what to look for in companies, how to research companies, how to understand financial statements, understand all the different metrics so you can make judgments on companies. And we've been able to have so many people, an incredible amount of people, hit 6 figures plus in their portfolios, 7 figures plus, even some hitting 8 figures plus in their portfolios over time. So if you're looking to take your game up to the next level and play this on a much higher level, apply for my private group. Once again, the link is in the description area.
Let's get into Gene Munster here.
I suppose the best way to ask you whether you think this is an opportunity or sort of sign of a greater risk here is to simply ask you, are you picking up more NVIDIA at this point?
Deepwater does own NVIDIA. I can't say how we're trading it in the near term, but I can say we do own NVIDIA. And Deirdre, I think at the fundamental question there is the near term and then there is the long term. And I just want to highlight one dynamic around.
Let me put one last cherry on top for that last conversation we just had, okay? It is your job, regardless of who's in office, Republican or Democrat, to do what? It is your job to go make money. It is your job to go pick good investments that are going to do good regardless of if a Democrat's running the country or Republicans running the country. That's your job. That's how you got to look at it. I don't care. I don't care if Kamala got elected or Trump got elected. I'm going to go do me. I'm going to make a lot of money and I'm going to get way more money. Whether Trump got elected or Kamala got elected. And I took the same approach when Biden got in office. And I took the same approach when Trump got in office the first time. And I took the same approach when Obama got in office. And whoever's the next guy after Trump or gal, I'm going to take the same approach. I don't care. I'm going to get richer. I'm going to get more wealthy, regardless of who's in office. I'm going to go make it happen. Not whoever's in office is going to make it happen. No, no, no. That's the approach you got to take, man. That's the approach a man takes in this world, right? You got to look out for you. You got to build your life. You got to build your family's life.
Term is that the innovation around DeepSeek is real. And even if you think that they're embellishing some of the cost piece around that innovation piece is real. But there's a much bigger question that needs to be asked is not about what the cost to train the previous models were, but to get to that incremental step forward closer to artificial general intelligence. Does DeepSeek...
Whenever I hear somebody say, if Kamala gets elected, the country, we're doomed. No, no, no. The country's not doomed. You're doomed. Oh, if Trump gets elected, we're all doomed. No, no, no. The country's not elected. The country's not doomed. You're doomed. The country's going to still run just fine. You say maybe this person will run it better. Fair. You could debate that all day. But the country won't be doomed. But if you have that approach, 100%, you will be doomed. If you are predicating your whole life based upon a man or a woman running for the presidency, and you think your outcome is dictated by that person, you're lost. You have lost. You took a real L there. That man or woman is not God. They put on their shoes one shoe at a time, just like you. They're not God. Trump's not God. Kamala's not God. These are just regular people out here. You say maybe one will run the country. Okay, that's fair. We could debate that. But to say the country's doomed because this person gets in and that person game, you're lost. You're doomed. You're doomed. If you got that mentality, you need to do some soul searching. You're in real trouble. I'm not talking about no. You're in real trouble if you got that mentality, man. Real trouble. Because you got what's called what? Victim mentality. Ooh, shit, that's bad. You got a victim mentality, you're in trouble in this world.
Some sort of a formula to do that in a cost-effective way. And my sense is that they will not be able to do that. So I think that the spending piece is on track. The reason why I mentioned there's the near term around how these are trading versus kind of, let's say, the near term over the next few days, actually, is that all eyes are centered on tomorrow night with Microsoft, with Meta, Tesla's comments about the hyperscalers. And most investors believe, consensus is that they're going to have some sort of reassuring comments that the market's going to be just, that the AI trade, the hardware trade, the capex spending is intact. And when that becomes consensus, if that doesn't yield kind of a rebound in some of these stocks, I think you could see a little bit of a near-term sell-off. If you're curious, Typically, when you have these shocks in the system, looking back to the run from 95 to 2000, it's about 30 days it takes from that initial shock that we saw yesterday to when things actually bottom, which puts us right in sync with when NVIDIA is going to be reporting their quarter.
Okay, so Gene, you can't say what Deepwater is doing right now with regards to NVIDIA. What about any of the other positions? And what should you do if you're a long-term investor here? Do you stay pat because we have earnings season coming and this throws into question some of the capex spending by hyperscalers? Or do you see this as an opportunity?
Well, I can say that we have made some adjustments, and specifically we continue to own some of these mega caps, but we're focused more on what we would call frontier tech, and this is more of these companies that are below 500 billion in market cap. These are companies that are also participating.
So that's not big tech. You're not picking up on big tech. You're actually broadening out.
Still holding it. Yep, we're shifting and owning some of these smaller companies. It's just as a point of diversification, but this concept of frontier tech has largely been on the side as mega caps have done so well over the past few years. But this, again, the focus here is this same innovation. If there's a belief in AI, I think these companies that are smaller, again, small, and quotes 500 billion in market cap and lower, I think that's where you're going to start to see some of the performance. Still believe strongly in these companies. I think Apple's going to have a great quarter. I think they're going to beat the iPhone numbers come this week. And so I'm still optimistic around many of these names. But just in terms of where I think there's going to be a shift, how we're thinking about this shift is this focus more towards these sub $500 billion.
That was a vicious downtrend for Apple there. It has bounced back going in these earnings, right? But man, that's a real mountain there, right? It basically just, went up, Santa Claus rally, and then it sold off completely everything. It sold off all the gains from the Santa Claus rally.
Please.
The bulls continue to fend off criticisms of market concentration. We're seeing a lot of graphs tracking fragility events in this early part of the year. There's interest rate risk. Dalio's trying to say, are we in 98 or 99 at this point? I just wonder, is it starting to put chinks in the armor of what Mag 7's done for the markets?
I think that it's healthy to own some of these. I think it's also good just not to entirely own the Mag 7. So yes, I think that there are some chinks in the armor. I think these are examples of why it's good to have a diversified program. But I would also add to that, Carl, is that I continue to believe that we still have a couple of years where this market's going to continue to move higher. I think it will move higher. I think we're far from the top of this. I think it will end in a spectacular bursting of the bubble. I don't think that the bubble bursted yesterday. And so I think that it's a nuanced answer, Carl, but I think the Mag 7 is going to continue to do well on this. We'll hear some of that tomorrow night. So we're a believer in AI.
Believer in AI, yeah. No, you can be, okay?